Greetings and welcome to Module 10, Ethical and Legal Considerations in Research. Today is November 9th, Monday, and I want to apologize up front for posting this a little bit late, but today is my 13th anniversary, wedding anniversary to my lovely wife, and so we spent the day together. Now, getting on to the subject at hand, we are discussing Chapter 20 in the textbook, and I would like to focus primarily on the issues of protection of human subjects. And protection of human subjects is a current focus of policy and regulation. One of the reasons it's very important is because there have been in the past some heinous crimes committed in the name of research that were the genesis of the legal and ethical considerations that we have today. Let me give you an example, or two examples. On page 626 of the textbook, you can see the first example of being the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. In that experiment, there were subjects who were followed that had syphilis that went untreated in order to study the progression of the disease. Later, when penicillin was discovered, the subjects were not treated. So that kind of ethical and legal problem or legal or criminal behavior is one prime example of the kind of conduct that isn't acceptable and we have to protect subjects from today. Second example is the Stanley Milgram example, which was an electroshock experiment. It was an experiment in order to determine a subject's reaction to authority. And in doing so, electric shocks were supposed to be given, and it caused mental harm to the subjects. So with those two examples, then, we see the necessity for the development of policies and procedures that outline and regulate research. Today I have posted 4 links in the content area of Module 10 for you to click on, and those take you to training videos on the DePaul website set up by the DePaul IRB, Institutional Review Board. The Institutional Review Board is a governing body that approves or disapproves proposed research. So for those of you that are writing the proposal, the idea is when you create a proposal and you're involving human subjects, the review process goes to the Institutional Review Board, or the IRB, for review. And if the IRB has determined that there's sufficient protection of your subjects, then they will approve it. If not, they will disapprove it and send it back for you to outline and specifically write the protections you put in place. Now, these protections go beyond something as simple as data. So let's say you do surveys, or let's say you collect GPAs, or let's say you collect test scores. You're legally and ethically obligated to protect the data of those people from whom you collect the data. You need to keep that anonymous. The next kind of consideration is to protect the emotional well-being. So should you use a blind study? That's one of the problems in the past, is not telling subjects what kind of experiment they're going to be participating in or what the goals are. Because in the name of control, researchers thought that it would be possible subjects may try to beat the experiment, maybe make it go awry, or they may try to please the researcher and work extra hard, and therefore they may insert a mediating variable that would affect the outcome. So trying to control that, they don't tell the subjects the purpose of the research, and that creates this deception. The deception can be a crime or a policy violation as well, because it could really hurt the subject's mind, or it could hurt their emotions, and they may need therapeutic treatment afterwards if there's a mental trauma from hurting their mind, or thoughts are all considerations that need to be protected. So the data, the person themselves, which comes straight out of the Milgram case and the Tuskegee case. And then the last thing that we have to think about in terms of protections is we also have to think about protecting the researcher and the institution from the negative outcomes that a bad research project could bring in the media if a research project were to be considered unethical, illegal, immoral, or harsh. And if we look at an institution such as DePaul, and had there not been controls in place and some kind of controversy came up, it would look as if the university failed to protect human subjects by regulating the research that goes on. So these are some of the most important considerations that are under inquiry, or that you should be thinking about with regard to creating a proposal. Now, I'm not specifically requiring it in this exercise in any way, because it is not going to go, your mock proposal is not going to be going before the DePaul IRB. So the requirement is just that you read the chapter and be familiar with the material. Now, in my closing comment, I would like to state that I disagree with this textbook in the location of where they put ethical considerations in chapter 20 near the end of the text. I think that the ethical considerations should go at the very beginning of the textbook, so that you, as new researchers, or as novice researchers, I should say, not new, but novice researchers, have a very grounded set of rules and parameters in which you are to operate and are restricted to operate, that enforce legal and ethical considerations, so that as you are looking at various investigations, you can comment on whether or not they would be appropriate for you to replicate, because they are or are not within ethical boundaries that you, as the primary investigator, set up, which can be a lot more narrow and much more strict than the general guidelines of review provided by the Institutional Review Board. Now, every university has an IRB. Every research organization, every medical organization that conducts research, all have IRBs, and those IRBs are legally accountable for regulating institutional research. So it would make sense that you would be made aware of these process and procedure requirements before you engage in the research. But one of the considerations is that on behalf of the book to push back and justify the book is that you need to understand the research process itself long before you can construct a research project. So that is my presentation for today, and thank you for tuning in.